This assassin is so unlucky, he barely needs to kill anyone. He steps into dirty water while crossing the street. Strangers knock things out of his hands. And while he is secretly photographing a target, a man jumps from a building and lands directly on his car. Wherever he goes, people somehow die in bizarre accidents. Even innocent bystanders get caught in the chaos. After causing too many deaths through sheer bad luck, the assassin known as Ladybug decides to change. From now on, he will only accept non-violent jobs. He does not even want to carry a gun. His handler soon offers him what sounds like the easiest assignment of his career: board a Japanese bullet train, steal a briefcase marked with a train sticker, and get off at the next station. Ladybug enters the train and quickly finds the case in a luggage compartment. For once, everything seems to be going perfectly. But as he approaches the exit, a man in a white suit suddenly attacks him with a knife. The blade strikes Ladybug in the chest. Luckily, his phone blocks the stab. Ladybug has no idea who the man is. He uses the briefcase as a shield and keeps begging the attacker to calm down. But the stranger refuses to listen. Then Ladybug's strange luck takes over. Without intentionally killing him, Ladybug causes the man to fall onto his own knife. To avoid alarming the other passengers, he places the body in a seat and makes it look as though the man is sleeping. Now he only needs to leave the train. Unfortunately, the stolen briefcase belongs to two professional assassins named Lemon and Tangerine. The two call themselves twins, even though they look nothing alike. They were hired by Japan's most feared crime boss, the White Death. Years earlier, the White Death had been a Russian criminal who entered the Japanese underworld. He quickly became the old gang leader's most trusted soldier. Then, in a single night, he slaughtered the entire organization and took control for himself. Since then, his name has terrified the entire criminal world. Recently, a rival gang kidnapped his son. Lemon and Tangerine were hired to rescue him and recover the ransom money. The money is inside Ladybug's briefcase. If the case is not returned, both assassins are dead. But when they go back to check on the White Death's son, they discover that he has also been killed. Blood is pouring from his eyes and mouth. Now they have lost both the money and the man they were supposed to protect. They position the body to make him look asleep, then split up to find the thief. At the next station, Ladybug prepares to leave. Then he sees Lemon waiting near the exit with a gun. Ladybug recognizes him from an earlier mission in which Lemon shot him twice. Rather than risk another fight, Ladybug runs toward a different door. But the train stops for only 1 minute. The doors close before he can escape. He hides the briefcase in the dining car and calls his handler using the dead attacker's phone. She identifies the man in the white suit as a Mexican assassin called the Wolf. Ladybug had once attended the Wolf's wedding disguised as a waiter. His real assignment was to observe a gang leader. During the celebration, Ladybug accidentally bumped into the groom. The Wolf left the room to change his clothes. While he was gone, everyone who had eaten the wedding cake suddenly began vomiting blood. By the time the Wolf returned, his wife and almost every guest were dead. Later, someone told him that the person responsible would be on this bullet train. The moment he saw Ladybug, he recognized him from the wedding and assumed he was the killer. That is why he attacked him. While Ladybug is hiding, he overhears Tangerine speaking with the White Death's men. They are demanding updates about the son and the briefcase. Realizing how dangerous the situation is, Ladybug decides to return the case and pretend nothing happened. But when he sits across from Lemon, Lemon assumes Ladybug stole the money and killed the White Death's son. The two begin fighting in their seats. They try to remain quiet, but their struggle becomes so loud that an elderly passenger repeatedly turns around and tells them to stop making noise. Ladybug eventually knocks Lemon unconscious with a laptop. Before leaving, he secretly adds a sedative to a bottle of water on the table. Elsewhere, another plan is already unfolding. A young woman known as the Prince is traveling with a man named Yuichi Kimura. She has taken Yuichi's young son hostage and forced him onto the train. The Prince and Yuichi discover the Wolf's body, along with the briefcase hidden nearby. After opening it, the Prince places a bomb inside. She also modifies Yuichi's gun. Now, if someone pulls the trigger, the weapon will explode backward and kill the shooter. Meanwhile, Tangerine finds Ladybug hiding inside a restroom. The two begin fighting. During the struggle, Tangerine receives another call from the White Death's men. Ladybug manages to convince him that he did not kill the young man. But Tangerine still needs someone to blame. Realizing that Tangerine plans to use him as a scapegoat, Ladybug waits until the train reaches another station. Just as the doors close, he kicks Tangerine onto the platform. But Tangerine refuses to be left behind. He runs after the train, jumps onto the rear car and smashes through a window to get back inside. At the same time, Lemon encounters the Prince and Yuichi. His instincts tell him that something is wrong. When he asks about the briefcase, the Prince pretends to be a helpless victim. A moment later, Yuichi collapses. Lemon helps lock him inside a restroom. Then he notices a gun hidden in the Prince's bag. He realizes that she, not Yuichi, is the real threat. Lemon prepares to shoot her, but the sedative in his water suddenly takes effect. As he loses consciousness, the prince pulls the trigger. Ladybug soon retrieves the briefcase again. While searching the wolf's body, he finds a photograph revealing the truth about the wedding massacre. The person who poisoned the cake was an assassin known as the Hornet. She had disguised herself as the wedding baker. She also killed the White Death's son using the same poison. At that exact moment, the Hornet appears on the train, disguised as a snack cart attendant. She attacks Ladybug, and during the fight, both of them are injected with her deadly venom. The Hornet carries only one dose of antivenom. Ladybug manages to take it and inject himself. The Hornet tries to steal it back, but she is too late. She dies from her own poison. Meanwhile, Tangerine meets the prince. She claims that someone murdered Lemon and her uncle Yuichi. But Tangerine quickly sees through her performance. He realizes she has been manipulating everyone. Ladybug arrives just as a gun is fired. Tangerine is struck in the neck and bleeds to death. Ladybug does not understand exactly what happened. Still believing the prince is innocent, he comforts her and blames the death on his own terrible luck. Then an elderly Japanese man passes through the car. Something the prince says immediately gets his attention. He realizes that she is the person who attacked his son. The man is Yuichi's father, known as the Elder. Ladybug tries to send him to another car, but the Elder refuses to leave. Before Ladybug can walk away, an escaped venomous snake bites him. Fortunately, the antivenom he used moments earlier also protects him from the snake's venom. The Elder confronts the prince and easily exposes her lies. Intimidated by him, she retreats. The Elder then tells Ladybug that the girl cannot be trusted. He also notices that Ladybug believes himself to be cursed. But instead of fighting fate, the Elder tells him to let fate take its course. He then reveals his own connection to the White Death. Years ago, the Elder served the Japanese gang that the White Death eventually destroyed. When the Russian betrayed the organization, the Elder fought back. He failed to defeat him, but both he and Yuichi survived. Soon afterward, Ladybug and the Elder discover that Yuichi and Lemon are still alive. Yuichi was only unconscious. Lemon survived being shot because he was wearing a bulletproof vest. When Lemon learns that Tangerine is dead, he immediately blames Ladybug. Yuichi reminds Lemon that he also shot him. Before the argument gets worse, the Elder tells them to stop fighting. They all share the same enemy. The White Death is waiting at the final station with an army of killers. The bullet train finally reaches Kyoto. The White Death boards and finds the prince waiting for him. She is not just another assassin. She is his daughter. Throughout her childhood, the White Death ignored her and favored his son instead. The prince has spent years resenting him and planning his death. She offers him the modified gun, expecting him to pull the trigger, but the White Death simply takes the weapon and walks away. Her plan appears to have failed. Outside the train, Ladybug kneels in front of the White Death. He claims everyone else on board is dead and that he is the only survivor. The White Death takes the briefcase and orders his men to search the train. Only then does Ladybug understand why so many assassins were brought together. Every person on the train is connected to the death of the White Death's wife. Her death had appeared to be a simple traffic accident. In reality, it was the result of several connected events. Lemon and Tangerine had attacked one of the White Death's criminal operations. The White Death was supposed to deal with the situation himself. Because he was unavailable, his wife went to collect their son instead. The son had demanded that she come and get him. While she was driving, an assassin named Carver caused the crash. She was taken to a hospital and might have survived, but the Hornet had already poisoned the only surgeon capable of saving her. Without the doctor, the White Death's wife died. The White Death blamed everyone involved. Lemon and Tangerine kept him away from his wife. His son placed her on the road. The Hornet killed the surgeon, and Carver caused the crash. The White Death hired Carver for the bullet train mission so he could kill everyone connected to his wife's death at once. But Carver called in sick with a stomach problem and secretly gave the assignment to Ladybug. That is how the wrong assassin ended up in the middle of the White Death's revenge plan. The White Death's men finally open the briefcase. The bomb planted by the prince explodes. The blast throws the White Death back into the train and kills several of his men. Lemon takes control of the train and starts driving, leaving many of the remaining assassins behind at the station. Ladybug, Lemon, Yuichi, and the Elder fight the gunmen still aboard. The Elder finally comes face to face with the White Death. The two begin a sword fight that has been decades in the making, but the Elder is older now, and the White Death soon overpowers him. He traps the Elder's sword against the train and uses the old man's walking stick to pull him toward the blade. Elsewhere, Ladybug and Lemon fight another assassin in the control room. To save Ladybug, Lemon grabs the attacker and throws both himself and the man from the moving train. They fall into the river below. Back inside, the White Death takes out a revolver. He loads only one bullet and lets fate decide who will die. After 2 empty shots, the bullet moves closer to the firing chamber. At that exact moment, Ladybug pulls the emergency brake. The train begins to derail. The sudden movement sends the elder's sword sliding back toward him. A loose bottle of water rolls into Yuichi's hand. Using the sword and the bottle, father and son finally defeat the White Death. But the train is now completely out of control. It leaves the tracks and crashes down the mountainside. Ladybug has always believed he is the unluckiest man alive. Yet, during the crash, a giant mascot figure lands around him and protects him from the impact. The train finally tears through a village and comes to a stop. Ladybug climbs from the wreckage, amazed that he is still alive. But the White Death has also survived. He points his revolver at Ladybug. Ladybug explains that he is not Carver and was only replacing him. But the White Death no longer cares. He wants someone to pay for his wife's death. When his revolver turns out to be empty, he grabs the prince's modified gun. The moment he pulls the trigger, it explodes in his face. The White Death is killed by his own daughter's trap. Ladybug, the Elder, and Yuichi prepare to leave. Then the prince suddenly appears. She has survived and is ready to kill all three of them. Just as she prepares to fire, a truck comes speeding through the village and runs her over. The driver is Lemon. He survived the fall from the train and returned to avenge Tangerine. Ladybug's supposedly simple theft mission is finally over. He boarded the train hoping to avoid killing anyone. Instead, he became trapped with some of the deadliest assassins in the world. And in the end, he survived not because he was the strongest or the smartest. He survived because his terrible luck always becomes someone else's problem.